thank you for an incredible experience. As some people say, a squeezing experience, not easy to digest. Do you want to tell us when you started writing, thinking about this film?
Yes, of course. Hi, good evening again. In these moments, like it's always strange because actually you want to ask the audience the
Yes,
question,
if they like the film.
not to answer questions. Yeah, I mean, but yeah.
But wait, we will open it up soon.
Okay,
So
okay,
prepare
okay,
your questions.
Yeah, so actually, it's I think it's quite an interesting because this film named Yes was born twice. So of course he also died once, but it was first born before the 7th of October. I started writing it in 2021, something like this. The title was Yes. It was there were the same main characters. It was divided to three parts. Same opening scene, same final scene, same themes. I think same thematics. Same thematic, same themes about around the capacity or the incapacity of sensitive souls to live in an unsensitive world, in society that became that worship power and money, that becomes more and more vulgar, more and more stupid in a state that is deteriorating more and more towards authoritarian regime, and a submissive artist inside the society. This impossible dilemma between being resistant, saying no, something that became almost impossible or anachronistic, and saying yes to everything, and finding yourself in a moral abyss. So this was the starting point, and in a way we felt with my producers this description fits half of the planet, at least. I mean, I could have said exactly the same things about American society. I'm sure that it's relevant. The same way it's relevant to Tel Aviv, it's relevant, I think, also to Paris, to London, to. I mean, I think that we all live, between this mixture between fascism and vulgarity, between. And there was a moment just before the 7th of October where we. Yeah.
The film's finished.
Okay. There was a moment just before the 7th of October where we hesitated whether to shoot it in the US, because with the French producer we told ourselves, okay, if already the script fits half of the planet, so let's at least shoot it with Joaquin Phoenix. So we were like really. I mean, not long ago I found an email that we exchange of emails from the 4th of October, where we starting to make a kind of imaginary but not so imaginary casting, American casting for the film. And then happened the 7th of October. I'm Israeli. I was born in Israel, in Tel Aviv, but for the last 4 years I left Israel and I live in Paris for the last 4 years. So the 7th of October I was in Paris, celebrating, by the way, the birthday of my son, who was born the 8th of October. And I was shocked, of course, like many other people. And in the first days, I think that I felt, it looked to me totally senseless to make a film, this film, any film. But after 2-3 weeks, I felt, first of all, the necessity to see things with my own eyes. So I went to Israel, I spent there maybe that time I spent there like around 3 weeks, and I was talking to everyone I knew, many people also from the artistic domains, and I was taken by a kind of contradicted, I would say, sensation. Like on one hand, Israel was, I mean, I'm sure you know it as well. Like Israel, like you saw a state in a society in a state of agony. And myself, I was in agony. And you know, there's kind of tenderness in agony. And for the first time for I don't know how many years, I felt an empathy towards Israel that, frankly, I don't know to which extent you know my previous films, but I haven't felt empathy for this play for many, many, many years. And suddenly I was taken by a feeling of empathy. And at the same time, talking to people, listening to people on the streets, listening to the declaration of politicians, it was super evident for me, I think that also for others, that we are rushing towards an apocalypse. Like this time the Israeli vengeance is going to be apocalyptic and biblical, and that we are going towards the worst that we ever knew, at least in this region, and the moral abyss will be of an endless depth this time. And when you see such a state of things, it's not even a question. I mean, for me, it wasn't even a question of doing a film, not doing a film. You have the feeling that in a way you're only a tool. I mean, you're obliged. You don't have a choice, and the only thing was which kind of film to do.
That was a short answer.
Sorry.
It was fabulous. So, okay, I wanna take you down another path. Let's talk about Tel Aviv. Your city, mine. Let's share a bit Tel Aviv in the film, Tel Aviv's role.
Yeah. So, I mean, on a very instinctive way, I can tell that what I felt, I mean, before the shooting, and I think that you can see it in the movie, I found everything in Tel Aviv captivating. I mean, everything, I wanted to shoot everything. I wanted to, each day I was inventing 5 new scenes. You know, each corner of street looked to me terrible and magnificent at the same time. I felt, now I think that it came from a feeling, from a concept, from an idea that exists in the film, that everything is connected to everything, that you cannot talk about the death in Gaza without talking about love in Tel Aviv, that you cannot talk about bombing in Gaza without talking about parties in Tel Aviv, you cannot talk about the genocide without talking about daily life in Tel Aviv, and that in a very, very terrible way, these 2 cities, only 1 hour ride between them, became, Tel Aviv and Gaza became kind of perverted sisters. So for me, I mean, it was evident that Tel Aviv will be a hero in this film, and for me, everything was, you know, a country in a war, a country that is committing massacre, genocide, whatever you want, a country in a war. There is a kind of strange, morbid vivacity. It's as if everything is dead and everything is super alive. A little bit like the parties in the film, you know, when I think that you feel that people are dancing on a volcano or dancing on dead bodies. So for me, I think that each corner of street in Tel Aviv, the beach, I don't know, each person who walked on the street was extremely relevant, was shouting something, was telling something, was everything was connected to everything. And you know, it's you make a movie while the movie is happening around you, because the movie was shot We began the shooting on the 7th of October 2024. So you shoot in the middle of horror, in the middle of bombs, in the middle of missiles, in the middle. So actually the movie is taking place around you. And the last thing that I want to say about Tel Aviv is that looking backward, because I think that there is brutality, but also tenderness in the way that Tel Aviv is shown in the film. And I think that looking backward, I had the feeling that it's the last second where you can still shoot Tel Aviv, not only in a political context, but also as a place. I mean, what I mean that I think that today I wouldn't have shot Tel Aviv in the same way if I would have begun a movie today, because I think that today Tel Aviv, it's the city, it's the social, economical, cultural center of the people who committed what Israel committed in Gaza. And you cannot take Tel Aviv out of the context. I mean, I think that today, a little bit like in the scene in the film, in a way, everything is red. Everything is bloody. But when I was shooting the film, I had the feeling that it's maybe the last moment where you can look at the beach also as a beach, and the sea also as a sea. And people on the sidewalks, there are still also people on the sidewalks. They are not only Israelis with all the political context that come today with. So I felt as if, in the camera, I want to save Tel Aviv, to save these moments before everything is colored in red.
Yes, so talking about red, there's a lot of rage in the film. Rage in content and rage in form. Rage when Leah gives her monologue. Rage with Yud. Should we talk a bit about the rage? Content or form? There's the sound, the music, the camera.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think there are all sorts of sentences. I mean, sometimes I think it's also banalities that are often said about making films, that you should have the right distance, you should keep the right distance. When you make a movie in the middle of an apocalypse, when you make a movie in hell, talking about right distance is totally out of context. I think that the movie is the expression of what I saw and what I felt, and what I saw and what I felt is endless horror shouting in 10,000 decibels, and this horror was shouting in 10,000 decibels in Gaza, of course, but also, as I said, in the most innocent places. And at the same time, and I think that it's also something that exists in the film, in a strange way, in an almost impossible, unexplained way, there was sometimes perverted, sometimes obscene, but also a lot of vivacity inside it. And I think, again, I think that you look to me like very intellectual spectator, so I'm sure, and cinephile, so I'm sure that you saw a lot of political films and political cinema. And I feel that classical political cinema has a kind of tendency sometimes, without generalizing, but a little bit, to make very serious, austere, sober films about a certain topic, another topic. I think that Yes is the total opposite, because I think that Yes, and that's why the movie is also in a way half musical, because I think that Yes is a movie that doesn't try to talk about a topic, but try to capture a feeling, an ambience, a soul, a soul of a nation, also a soul of a place, but maybe even on a higher level, to capture this moment in time, even beyond Israel, in a certain point, and that's why it cannot be only austere, only serious, only severe, because life is not like this.
It is very powerful, and I think it's essential, and you feel it, not only understand it because of that.
Yeah, exactly. Because as you said, like one of the challenges wasn't to talk about horror, but put horror on the screen, not to talk about madness, but put madness on the screen. Like respond to the political madness with the madness of cinema.
Yes, I'm going to ask another question and then we'll open up, because otherwise we'll never open up to the audience. Your characters all have two kinds of conflicts inside, the personal and the general or the ideological. And of course, I can relate, and I'm sure you can too, but I think it's very strong in the film, how they move from the one to the other.
Yeah, I guess again, I think that I always say like I'm doing in a way all my films. I feel it's a kind of this dance of intimacy and hate between myself and my motherland. But at the very end, for me, it's even not this. It's a window in order to observe humanity in general. Like I don't think that at the very end, my films are about Israel. I think that they are about London, the same way, but it's just each person, there are people who are doing endless movies about their relationship with their father, but at the very end they try to, so each director I think chooses, so, but I think that I said it because I think that when you grow up in Israel, it's extremely evident for you that any distinction between political and personal is totally artificial. I think it's true for everyone. But in Israel, it's an evidence.
It's part of our DNA.
Yeah, exactly. To try to distinguish between them, to try to isolate the individual from the political, from the public, is totally artificial, and that's why I think in the movie, sometimes the most political scenes, like the movie, I think that is totally political and not political at all. And for me, when they are dancing ketchup song in the beginning, and Tel Aviv is shaking, and the Middle East is shaking, it's an extra political scene. While even in a way, this monologue of the 7th of October is also a personal scene, or what's happening on the hill. So I think that
it's all intertwined.
Yeah. It's one huge pudding,
Yes. Okay, this pudding moment is a good moment to see if anyone would like to ask a question. Go ahead.
Hello. I have a question. At the beginning of the film, there seems to be like clear references to like a film by David Lynch, Wild at Heart. And I don't know if you remember, but in Wild at Heart, there's a character that says, "This world is wild at heart and weird on top." And I was wondering if, it's you that encapsulates, kind of the soul of your film, and if you had that in mind with the Elvis Presley song, I was wondering if that was intentional, the reference to David Lynch.
First of all, I must say, thanks. First of all, I must say that, and I think it's a good thing, but there hasn't yet been a screening where someone wasn't raising his hand and saying, it's clearly that the film is a reference to, and then there are 50 answers. There are like just 2 days, it's not a screening, but some days ago I got a mail from a very, very big French film critic who made a perfect analysis that totally convinced me that the movie is a remake, a Tel Aviv remake for the Contempt, Le Mépris by Godard. And really, the explanation was perfect. I don't understand how I didn't, because it's perfect. Like the guy who wanted to be appreciated or loved by his wife, so he tries to promise her something that he cannot fulfill, and then he's selling his soul, and he's losing the love of his wife, and they go on an island, and on the island there is the Russian, which is like the American producer. It was really Wild at Heart also I can see. But afterwards, I don't know. I can tell stupid cinephile sentences like that I believe that there are, I don't know, there are two sons in the cinema. They were lately, Godard and Lynch, and both died, more or less the same year, and so now we are orphaned. So I don't know what to say, but and at the same time, I don't think that each sexy couple which is dancing with fury and desire, it's not a monopoly of David Lynch, but yes, I guess that it exists inside. I must say that if I have a system, I have a method when I'm making, I write a script, etc., and then when I start to work on the shooting plan, which for me is the most important stage when I do a movie, and the most creative one, and the most personal one. So one of the things that I'm doing in order to think all the time about cinema is to watch sometimes 8 films a day, but I don't watch them normally. I watch them often on a kind of fast forward and on mute. And it's interesting because it enables you to see the movie as a skeleton. You don't care anymore about the characters. You try to understand the material. And it's a very fascinating exercise because then you understand that 99% of the movies are actually the same movie. And you're very thankful for this 1% of films that are different and that can shake your mind and your soul and your head. And of course, if I would have done the list of this 1%, one of the first places would have been Wild at Heart. So I did all this explanation in order to get to
Wild at Heart. Any other question? Go ahead there. Yeah.
Hi. I was wondering whether the film has been screened in Israel and what was the reception there.
The film was screened, now I'm talking about a commercial screening or a public screening, in one screening in Jerusalem Film Festival. The artistic director of the festival saw it in Cannes, and he was he loved the film and he's courageous, so he invited the film. And even made a kind of event around the film, a talk. A few days later, he got a letter from 2 ministers in the Israeli government calling him to cancel the screening and naming the movie, collaboration with the enemy, betrayal, and also, of course, they never saw the movie. But and then another very intelligent guy, which is our Minister of Culture, gave an interview on TV saying that the movie is an insult for a good patriot like himself, or something like this. But the Jerusalem Film Festival insisted, and the screening took place. And I wasn't inside the theater. Afterwards, I learned that there were 2 or 3 people that started to shout all sorts of stuff inside the theater, but at the same moment they left. And the screening was extremely powerful. It was extremely powerful. It was extremely powerful. What I felt, but afterwards people told me that, while abroad or outside of Israel, for instance, film critics, very good ones, intelligent ones, they named the movie madness, excessive, surrealistic. For Israeli audience, the film was, neo-realistic. I think
documentary.
Exactly, documentary. I think there wasn't 1 millimeter between themselves and the screen. Even the wildest scenes, even this guy who is shaking his head and becomes a screen where you can see the worst video, the cruelest video ever of the 7th of October. It was. I think for Israel, it was their state of mind and existential situation of a nation that stayed blocked on the 7th of October and is still hunted by by real, of course, and also fantasy of atrocities. So in this sense, it was very powerful, and there wasn't any. None of the official distributors didn't want to distribute the movie, strangely enough. But we are going to. I mean, we are going to release more or less ourselves the movie on the 1st of January. So then I'll be able to tell you more.
There was, yes, you there.
Hi, I have two small questions. The first one is, how do you feel being in the same program with the movie as the voice of Hind Rajab? And have you watched this movie? And the second question, why did you choose Alexei Serebryakov for this role? Thank you.
No, I didn't. I mean, I didn't watch the movie because I live in Paris. It wasn't yet released in France, and the main thing that I'm doing in the last months is to touring the world with the movie. So I didn't see the movie. I heard about it, of course. I imagine that these movies are very, very different on all the aspects, formally, cinematically. But I think that there's one huge difference that is important to understand. That you know, I mean, Yes is a movie that was done by an Israeli director, and is looking even at Gaza in the way that Israelis are looking at it. And it's a movie that is done from the point of view or from the side of those who executed the crime, not from the side of the victims. Also victims, because there is the 7th of October, etc. But at the very end, it's a movie that is done. And it's very different, I think, you know, because I think that today in our world we got very used, which is a positive thing, of course, to movies done about victims and from the point of view of victims. And you know, of course, I hope that now that 3 million film will be done by the people in Gaza, but I think that, you know, that in order to grasp a reality, you need, I would have said it differently without comparing, because of course I'm not making a comparison, but I think that all of us would have adored to watch a movie directed by Fritz Lang in 41 in Munich, okay? We would have adored, I think, to watch a movie done on a German couple in Munich in 41. I'm not comparing Israelis to Nazis, etc. But and at the same time that we would have adored to watch a movie done by someone in Auschwitz. But I think, you know, that it's like it's different perspectives, and I think that these perspectives are initial. To understand reality. So to answer the question for me, without watching the movie, and I don't know how, but only from what I heard, it's the most natural things that these movies are screened in the same program. What was the other one? Alexei Serebryakov, the Russian actor. Yeah. Yes, you know, I like. So there was this character of the billionaire, and you know, there is something in the film that I think that the movie is all the time, on one hand, like hyper realistic, as if it comes out of the news, and a total legend, a total fantasy. And also this billionaire, you know, I wanted him to be like realistic, but also going beyond, you know, like this scene when he's like making appear this skydrifter out of the sand while pushing on a remote control. He's like the most powerful person on earth. He's like the devil, you know. He's like stronger than laws of nature. So for me, in a way, it was evident that it should be either American or Russian, because you know, it's like mythological. American, Russian, it's mythological. And I've chosen Alexei because it was, for me, it was like the devil. And you know, he has this unbelievable capacity of turning his eyes to red when the camera gets close to him. Physically, I don't understand how it's possible. But yeah, I mean, for me, he gave this transcendental notion, this legendary thing to the character.
Do you have any more questions? Go ahead.
Yeah, more comment than a question. When you talk about this character, to me, what he portrayed wasn't the all-powerful billionaire, but he portrayed Netanyahu. But he speaks completely out of context, and the people crawling at his feet and licking his boots. In Israeli media, they don't refer to licking his boots, but I will leave it to the imagination of other people. That's the image I got.
It's great. I mean, I heard already from people that he's Putin, so now he's Netanyahu. You know, and the guy on the boat, on the yacht, looks a little bit like Trump. So it's perfect. Yeah. For me, I can agree. Let's do like the last one. This one. Okay.
Hi, thank you so much for the film. I thought it was wonderful. I was wondering, could you talk a little bit about directing the performances in the film, particularly from your leading man? I thought it was very interesting that while very controlled, it almost felt like he was moving too fast for the camera at times, doing exactly the opposite thing that you would expect any human being to do. It was a really interesting study of a human being fraying. Just really kept me on edge the entire time, and I was wondering how you draw that performance from someone.
It's a good question.
Yeah, it's a very good question. I'm not sure that I have a very good answer, but the question is better than the answer that I will give. What I can tell is that what can I tell? No, he's like I think that this guy himself is, for me, is a kind of miracle. I mean, I haven't done a lot, you know. I mean, he's a very fascinating person. He's a performer. He's not an actor. He's a performer. He before participating taking part in the film, he did mainly extremely avant-garde performances. He's like the prince of avant-garde of Tel Aviv, which means that there are around 40 people who know him, but they really, really love him. So and admire him. And in Israel, he became famous not because of his avant-garde spectacles, because of one thing that he did. Like if you Google his name in Hebrew, the first 30, 40 results will talk about one gesture that he did, that in Independence Day around 10 years ago, there was a ceremony with a speech of the Minister of Culture back then that was also terrible, and he went there with an Israeli flag, and he shoved the Israeli flag in his ass, and he was waving to her with his ass each time that she would finish the sentence or something like this. Then he was arrested, and it was a big scandal. So he's like extremely creative, and so sometimes, you know, and also I think that he's very punk. He's like basically an extremely punk person. Like he's all the time, his main state of, he's avant-garde in a very deep way. He's not avant-garde only as an intellectual formal, but as a refusal to everything that is common. So I think that's why, you know, in the small gestures, and it's interesting because he's playing a submissive person. He's playing someone who's saying yes all the time. But back inside is like, so I think, you know, that you can see this resistance about him in his small gestures, in the small gesture, in this strange things that you talk about, in the pace, in the rhythm of his acts, suddenly an entire personality, a different personality is going out. And for me, it's very interesting because, I think that this why is not a perfect fascist artist. He would like to be. He would like to be totally swollen by the machine and become another slave of this authoritarian regime and shouting like everyone, yes. But there is a kind of something inside him, kind of ironic artistic distance that enables him to be to become totally a part of it. And I guess it's also his personality.
And a mirror of who we are, no?
And a mirror of who we are, yeah. Totally.
Nadav Lapid, thank you very much.
Thanks a lot. Pleasure. Thanks a lot.